shots administered yesterday. This marks a truly historic moment. What we are witnessing here is the strength of multilateralism. We have seen what can be achieved when all actors work together. The public sector, the scientific community, economic actors, as well as civil society. Let me reiterate the words that we have heard so many times but not can have lost their relevance. We will defeat COVID-19 everywhere or nowhere. No one is safe until everyone is safe. The current mutations show this simple fact very clearly. Germany is and continues to be committed partner in the international fight against COVID-19. On the 19th of February, Chancellor Angela Merkel has communicated Germany's new pledge to the ACT Accelerator. Germany will be providing a further 1.5 billion euros to the ACT Accelerator in 2021. This sums up to a total ACT Accelerator contribution of almost 2.2 billion euros in 2020 and 2021. The biggest part of this sum goes to the Covax AMC, 1.08 billion euros. But Germany also provides funding to the other two pillars, as well as the health system strengthening connector, the fourth pillar, if you will. This substantial financial contribution to ACT Accelerator shows Germany's trust in the participating organizations. The current financing gap of the ACT Accelerator is more than $22 billion for 2021. To close this gap, it will be necessary to widen the donor base by further substantial contribution of other public donors as well as the private sector. Therefore, Germany very much welcomes the leadership of the current G7 and G20 presidencies, putting equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics on the international agenda. This will be very helpful to mobilize more funding for the global medical answer to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. And now I'd like Dr. John to provide some perspective of the tremendous work that's been going on behind the scenes preparing for this week and the first deliveries and the amount of work that is yet to be done, that lies ahead. Dr. John, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, and greetings from Addis Ababa. Let me join others in characterizing this day as a historic moment for our collective fight against this pandemic, which is again a true symbol of the significant milestones that have been achieved. In our views as Africa's CDC, we see this as the power of global solidarity and the power of global cooperation, and a victory of multilateralism over protectionism. Today, we are here to witness the beginning of the end of a long journey, which is the fight against COVID-19 on the continent of Africa. So I join others, His Excellency, the President of Ghana, Excellency Nana Akufo, in the greater aspiration of a continent of 1.2 billion people that will not stop at anything until we vaccinate the population of the continent appropriately. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and this is that step today, a historic step that will allow us to achieve those greater ambitions. It is truly in this context that we as a continent, under the leadership of His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, when he was chair of the African Union, established the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team that will work hand in hand with Covax. And we have been doing so over the last couple of months to continue to acquire enough vaccines to secure the health security and the economic security of our people. We also shared that great aspiration and vision of His Excellency Nana Akufo when he talks of the continental manufacturing capability. In that light, I'm very delighted to announce that the African Union Commission will be hosting a meeting on April 12 under the leadership of Chairperson Moussa Faki, will bring the continent together to develop a roadmap and a framework that will enable Africa to begin to address with specifics the key milestone to begin to manufacture vaccines on the continent. Just yesterday at the ASWAM conference, it was very enlightening to see our leadership, Chairperson Moussa Faki, calling for a new public health order with emphasis on continental manufacturing of diagnostics, medicines, and vaccines to guarantee our continental health security. It was also delighting to hear the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Adesina, describe our needs for the continent for health as African defense mechanisms. All of that speaks to the need for our own ability to stand up and say that we, as a people of 1.2 billion people, will continue to invest in our own health security, our economic security that increasingly is being threatened by COVID-19. It is in this perspective that we look forward to working with all countries that will be receiving this Covax vaccine to ensure that they are distributed effectively, provide the appropriate support from the Africa CDC and partnerships that will enable us to distribute these vaccines in a timely fashion. I thank you for the opportunity for this great collaboration, and congratulations to Covax for this important milestone.
Thank you, sir. And we'll move straight on to Henry Support, Executive Director, UNICEF. UNICEF, of course, is behind what is we are now calling the largest, most complex distribution of vaccines in history. Henrietta, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ollie, and thank you, everyone. Your Excellency, President Nana Akufo-Addo, I'm very pleased to hear that you and your wife are on television to give confidence to the people that vaccines are safe. So thank you very much, Your Excellency. Last year has been a dark one for families all over the world, but the rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines provided a hopeful light at the end of the tunnel. And now the COVID vaccine facility begins to make good on its promise to make sure that that light shines for all. And we're off and running. Vaccine doses have arrived in West Africa and Asia, with many more countries to follow in the coming days and weeks. We've now seen Africa's first vaccinations and the Covax doses in Ghana and Ivory Coast. Truly moving ceremonies in both countries were held yesterday. But what took place on Monday is more than a feel-good story that speaks to our collective best natures. It is a necessary first step that speaks to our collective best interests. The only way out of this pandemic is to ensure vaccination is available around the globe, and that people from less wealthy countries are not left behind in the race to be protected. UNICEF, we are committed to making this happen. Last week's momentous arrivals were just the first batches of vaccines that UNICEF will ship through the Covax facility as part of this historic effort to deliver close to 2 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines to around 190 countries and territories. To date, more than 1.1 million doses have been delivered, with more than 20 more countries expected to receive hundreds of thousands of doses this week. I would like to thank the Serum Institute of India for being the first to help deliver vaccines to the AMC countries, and for working around the clock to package and make vaccines available in record times, as well as the government of India for their immense support. We all have a lot of work ahead of us. In terms of delivery, UNICEF is also working closely with airlines and other partners to find innovative solutions to help us deliver Covax vaccines as quickly as possible. We've already seen tremendous partnership. I would like to thank the freight forwarders and Emirates Airlines for helping UNICEF with shipments to Ghana and the Ivory Coast in record turnaround time. Only today, we have 5 shipments, including to Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, and Nigeria, where we are delivering COVID-19 vaccines consolidated with syringes and routine vaccinations, ensuring that children are also protected, among many other countries, and the 20 countries that will be receiving vaccines this week. We have also supported governments and developing national vaccination plans and preparing for the arrival of the vaccines. Along with our partners, we have mapped out existing cold chain equipment and storage capacity, and we have delivered and installed thousands of new fridges to keep vaccines at the right temperature in health facilities in this past year. In Ghana, for example, we've delivered 2,500 fridges since May last year, but much work remains. With each of these steps, we move closer to the moment in life when we can start to return to normal for the billions of children and families affected around the world. And this is obviously our focus at UNICEF. Over the next couple of weeks, we will be talking a lot about how this pandemic has impacted the lives of children, starting later today when we'll be issuing estimates of the number of children who've been unable to attend class in person for almost a year. So when we talk about vaccines arriving in countries, we need to recognize that what this also represents for children. It is hope. Their access to education, health, and protection services have been severely disrupted by the pandemic. As vaccinations roll out, this will help to bring the pandemic under control so that we can start to work to build a better, safer, and healthier future for everyone. Lastly, I want to just pause for a moment on exactly where we are. What has happened in the span of less than a year is nothing short of astounding. There are no miracles in public health, but if there were, this would be one. Not even 12 months have passed since the world began locking down, closing up, and socially distancing to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And at that time, not only did the world's scientists rally to do the impossible, identify, test, and mass-produce vaccines to treat the virus, but procure and distribute vaccines began because the world's humanitarians rallied to do it together. Not just for wealthy countries, they have now arrived and will continue to arrive in the world's least wealthy, the poorest countries as well. These are remarkable efforts, and the work that we all, the private sector, the United Nations, the development agencies, the governments, the donors, and other partners will doubtlessly continue to do more moving together and will stand for generations to come as proof of what the world can do when we do it together. It is history in the making. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Henrietta. Dr. Richard Hatchett, CEPI has played a hugely influential, formative role in helping Covax build its portfolio of vaccines. Over to you for some brief remarks, please.
Thank you, Ali. This is a historic week in the global struggle against COVID-19, certainly. The fact that we now have multiple safe and effective vaccines against COVID-19 developed in record time is testament to the scientific community and industry partners from around the world rising to the challenge of this pandemic. Working together, we have developed vaccines at record pace and scaled up manufacturing to rapidly produce hundreds of millions of doses and ultimately billions of doses in coming months. And the global community through Covax is now responding to the challenge of delivering these vaccines to those who need them most. Dr. Tedros mentioned the distributions to come in coming days. To appreciate how far we have come, I think it is important to reflect on our experience in the last pandemic. I served at the White House in 2009 and helped lead the effort to donate vaccines to developing countries. The first doses were delivered some 4 months after doses began to be distributed in high-income countries. And in the first 6 weeks after delivery began, only 100,000 doses were shared. In the first 3 months, fewer than 10 million doses were distributed to 17 countries. In 10 days, we will have exceeded the achievements of the first 3 months of the 2010 program. And of course, that is only the beginning. This is a moment for celebration, and we must remain firmly focused on delivering equitable access if we are to stop the endless cycle of lockdowns and illness. The moral, epidemiological, and economic imperatives of equitable access are clear for all to see. I am proud that millions of the first doses to be distributed through Covax will be the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. CEPI's early investment in R&D and manufacturing helped to accelerate this vaccine through development and speed up its availability at scale. But the job is not done when it comes to developing vaccines against COVID-19. In parallel to the global rollout of vaccines, we must now redouble our R&D efforts so we have the tools we need to tackle the emerging variants of COVID-19 as rapidly as possible. And we must make best use of the multilateral Covax framework to achieve fair and equitable access to vaccines globally. CEPI will continue to invest in R&D for vaccines that can be made available to Covax, to support the adaptation of existing vaccines, and to initiate the development of new vaccines specifically targeted at the variants. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I should just also mention that President of Ghana has had to leave us to continue his official duties. We thank him for joining us and his participation. I'm very happy to be able to tell you that the Honourable Kwaku Agyeman Manu, Minister of Health of Ghana, is staying with us and will be available for questions afterwards. Our last speaker, but not least, Seth Berkley. It's been quite a journey. It's been emotional. Today is a pause for reflection, but there's a lot of work still ahead. I invite you to give us a few brief remarks there.
Thanks, Ali, and thank you for our friends in the media for joining us here this afternoon and for your continued interest in Covax. You've already heard from my colleagues on the panel about the significance of the recent milestones. From an implementing country perspective, and if the president still is here, I want to thank him for his support and his time today, and congratulate him on the vaccinations in Ghana, but also about why Covax makes sense from an equitable access and an international development perspective. And here I'd like to personally thank the German State Secretary for her personal support for Covax, as well as Germany's leadership, Angela Merkel, who has been a champion for many, many years now on these activities. You've also heard from my good friend, John Ngenga-san, on the preparations being made for the broad wave of rollouts we're witnessing in Africa, as well as across the Covax facility, and of course from my fellow Covax leaders on the contributions that they are all making as we endeavor to end the acute phase of this pandemic. So let me just touch base on what I believe the weeks and months ahead will hold. We have to think about this in terms of doses, dollars, and deliveries. Through our 190 participants in the Covax facility, we continue to rely on the support of both self-financing participants that pay their own way through the Covax facility, but are working together in a multilateral fashion to help bring down the cost and increase availability of vaccines, and the support of donors to fund lower income economies through the Gavi Covax Advanced Market Commitment. As you know, we made major progress at the recent G7 virtual summit on February 19th, when we doubled the support for the Gavi Covax AMC with major new funding from Germany, the European Union, the United States, and a number of other donors. We also learned that France and the United Kingdom would share surplus doses with Covax, joining other nations in contributing to what we hope will be a major new source of early vaccines. We're incredibly grateful for all this support, but we're not there yet. We believe with the right funding in place, it may be possible to purchase even more doses, maybe 1.8 billion doses of vaccine in 2021 for the low and lower middle income AMC countries. That's 500 million doses more than we set out to achieve late last year. Our goal is to protect as many people as possible and to count on the vision and support of the international community to help us achieve this. But we also count on the private sector to have not just one, but a handful of safe and effective vaccines available, as Richard mentioned, and scaled up in less than 12 months is a triumph of collaboration between science, government, and business. We're proud to be delivering this month vaccines from 3 manufacturers, the Serum Institute of India, AstraZeneca Oxford, and Pfizer BioNTech. We're also excited by the progress made by the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine, which just received US FDA emergency use authorization, and as you know, has agreed to provide us with 500 million doses, and by our recent memorandum of understanding with Novavax, which we hope to turn into a firm advance purchase agreement for 1.1 billion doses in the current weeks. The lessons we're learning from the emergence of variants gives us even more reason to believe that our best chance out of this pandemic is to continue use of non-pharmaceutical interventions, but to roll out vaccines as soon as possible and have a diverse portfolio of vaccines suitable for all settings and contexts. CEPI's portfolio here will be incredibly important in optimizing our toolkit to fight COVID-19, and we'll continue to look to add other candidates from any manufacturer that meets our criteria of having received approval from a stringent regulatory authority and/or pre-qualification by WHO, and assuring that they will complement our portfolio. Lastly, on deliveries, you'll see from the website that today, for transparency purposes, we will publish our final allocations for SII and AstraZeneca doses for February through May, as well as the Q1 Pfizer deliveries. We will continue to keep this updated whenever we have an opportunity, because of course, there will be changes and swings and problems we will have to deal with. It can't be emphasized enough that we are undertaking the largest and most complex vaccine rollout in history. Across the Covax pillar, we've undertaken vast efforts to help countries prepare for this, and we need to keep working to ensure the training, infrastructure, and every other critical ingredient is in place to make every dose count, with the goal of helping every country end the acute phase of the pandemic as soon as possible. I'll leave it at that. I thank you for your patience and look forward to answering questions. Back to you, Ali.
Thank you, Seth, and thanks to all my speakers here. We'll move to questions. Before we do, let me just remind you, in addition to the speakers that you've heard from, we have Minister Manu, we have Soumya Swaminathan, Chief Scientist, World Health Organization, Kate O'Brien, Director of Immunization, Vaccines and Biologicals at the World Health Organization, along with Bruce Aylward, Senior Advisor to the Director General. We have Jian Gandhi, Covax Coordinator at UNICEF Supply Division, and we have Aurelia Nguyen, the Managing Director of the Covax Facility. So plenty of experts. I do apologize, we've gone a little bit longer than we wanted to for remarks, but with our panelist blessing, we'll go over slightly over the time allocated to this session. So I'll take the first three questions, please. We've got Ketevan Kadava, got Jamie Keaton, and I've got Jenny Leigh Ravello. Ketevan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to ask you about vaccination, of course, and future plans concerning Georgia. You said that you would like to speak not on this press conference on specific countries, but still, if I may, please. Can you tell us your plans about Georgia? If not now, when? It was a question of Dr. Tedros yesterday during the press conference. Thank you, Dr. Tedros, for your support to Georgia. Thank you very much. We are now waiting for the vaccine. I've just checked, and in this your today's statement, it's AstraZeneca and Pfizer, but there is no vaccine still in Georgia now. So what can you tell us about it? When vaccine will arrive in Georgia? And also, how would you assess the situation? What recommendations you can give us before and during vaccination? Thank you very much.
That's a great question. We will try to get to that. I would prefer we just keep to single, non-country specific questions, but we'll try to cover that one. We know it's important. Jamie. Jamie Keaton.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Ali, for taking my question. If we could just get a little bit of detail about when the countries, like the wealthier countries like South Korea, New Zealand, Canada, are also going to be getting their vaccines as part of this project. And if I could ask Seth, could you give us some more details about the J&J vaccine, when you expect that to be finalized, the 500 million doses?
Thanks, Jamie. Of course, Covax is it's a global solution for the entire world. We'll happily answer that question. Jenny Lee Ravello.
Hi, Ollie. Thank you so much for taking my question. A question for Dr. Berkeley. The first deliveries of vaccines via Covax was months in the making. What particular lessons have you picked up in those months that could further improve the work of Covax? And also, if I may add, there is still a need to scale up manufacturing capacity to meet global demand. But how? And what role can Covax play in the further scale up of manufacturing capacity today amid impasse on IP waivers and limitations in current partnerships between vaccine manufacturers? Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So lessons learned so far in vaccine development. It has been a historic pace of development, but also what can we do to better scale up? So that's a good question for you, Richard. Maybe we'll go to that one first. Richard.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Jenny, thank you for the question. It is a critically important question. I'll say what we've done. I'll say what we're concerned about, and certainly I'll describe what we're experiencing. What we have done, CEPI has made investments with a number of our partners, AstraZeneca being one example, Novavax being another example, where we have supported their efforts to provide for technology transfer of their vaccine development to additional manufacturers. And that will bring many hundreds of millions of doses online that would not otherwise have been created. So our direct investments have enabled that increase in manufacturing capacity. In recent months, we have become particularly concerned that the existing capacity could be constrained by shortages in the supply chain, either the supply of critical consumables or raw materials required for the manufacturing of vaccine, or shortages of filling and finishing capacity, shortages of medical glass products to actually put the vaccine into, and other critical materials that are required to deliver the vaccine. So CEPI has made investments, Covax has made investments to secure fill and finish capacity, which we can deploy to our vaccine manufacturing partners. We also have secured enough vials to fill 2 billion doses of vaccine. And we are now working with industry partners on the issue of these upstream supply constraints. And we have been talking with governments, urging them not to impose export controls, which can further exacerbate these issues. Finally, looking forward, certainly as we are discussing with many governments around the world, I think there is a recognition that the mission ahead of us is to end the pandemic, not just for countries to protect their own populations, but to end the pandemic. And that to do that, manufacturing must be scaled up. We're already hearing discussions through the G7, through the G20, and we certainly will support those and bring our ideas to the table along with those of other partners. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. The question for you, Seth, was around wealthier economies such as Canada and South Korea, I believe, taking delivery of vaccines in addition to lower income economies supported by the AMC.
So thank you, Ollie. Before that, let me just add one other thing to Jenny, because she asked some general questions. I think as we think about pandemics in the future, we had to put together the structure of Covax. We had to raise all of the money. We had to then be able to do the deals. I think one of the things we'll have to think about in the future is, can we have some prearranged mechanisms so that, you know, we could start immediately with finance, being able to put deals together, and that would help in terms of scaling up manufacturing and having speed as a critical priority going forward. So it will be very important to go back and look at all of the lessons learned. We've also had an opportunity to put together indemnification and liability and things like no fault compensation, et cetera, which hopefully will go beyond this pandemic to be useful in the future. Jamie's questions on wealthy countries. South Korea has received its first set of doses on Friday as part of the Pfizer delivery. Other countries will be coming up. Just to say, we have 141 countries that will be receiving either SII or AstraZeneca vaccines. And the challenge, of course, is manufacturers cannot instantly supply those countries. So this goes to the question on Georgia as well, which is we're just starting, but we should see more and more countries getting served over the next few weeks and months, including those in all income levels and across the world. Over.
Thank you, Seth. And Ketevan, we will get information to you as soon as we can on all deliveries. We're updating our websites regularly, so you know where we are if you want updates on this one. Let's take another round of questions. Robin, Gabrielle, and Natasha. Robin, let's start with you.
Thank you. A question for Seth, if I may. I haven't had the chance to pore over the updated distribution list. Can you point us to what changes have been made and why we're talking about until the end of May rather than until the end of the second quarter as we were before? Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Good question. Gabrielle.
Hi, Gabrielle Steinhauser from the Wall Street Journal here. Similar question. I did have a chance to look at the document and I saw that there's a difference of, I think, 99 million doses from the AstraZeneca vaccine, but then of course the time frame has changed. So does that mean that those missing 99 million doses would then all come in June? Can you also give us the split between the AstraZeneca doses, which ones come from AstraZeneca itself and which ones come from the SII? And finally, it says in the document that the Pfizer doses are part of the list, the distribution list, but they are not part of this round of allocation. So can you explain what exactly that means and what it means for the timing of those doses? Thank you.
Great to see you've had a chance to look at that document. And again, apologies for not getting it up as early as we would have liked. We had a bit of a layout issue getting it up. Natasha, we'll take your question next, then we'll go to answers.
Hi, this is a question for Maria Flachsbarth. Are you concerned that vaccine hesitancy in Germany and the AZ vaccine is undermining confidence in this vaccine in lower income countries, please? And also, have you considered donating the vaccine that your citizens don't seem to want to Covax?
Thank you, Natasha. Maria, maybe we'll start with you on that one, on vaccine hesitancy and donations in Germany. And then I think Robin and Gabrielle's are fairly similar with, if we can unpack a little bit the final allocation document we posted online after that. Maria, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm pretty convinced that there are many people in Germany who would love to get this AstraZeneca vaccine. But as long as we are running short of vaccine, we have to prioritize. So we have only certain groups of people who are allowed to be vaccinated at this moment. And beyond of that, as in many countries that have in long-term run, we will probably have secured more doses than we need, for example, in summer and autumn. So this question is discussed intensively in Germany, and we welcome the EU Commission initiative working on a mechanism of sharing excess vaccines doses. And in this connect, we advocate that doses should be shared primarily via the Covax facility. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm going to ask Seth you to provide a possible overview on the final allocation. Maybe we could also bring in Kate or Sumia. We have plenty of people here who could talk to this.
Thanks, Ali. So first of all, in the allocation in the columns, it talks about which are coming from AstraZeneca and which are coming from SII. It's important that different manufacturers have different territories of vaccines. It also, the reason some of the numbers have changed is because it's the complexity of not only getting pre-qualification, but approvals and shipping. And so some of the timelines have slipped, and that has meant that vaccines have moved out. But of course, you are correct that the same number of doses will ultimately be made available. We will do everything we can to try to get doses available as early as possible. Where we can't, then it'll mean they'll come slightly later. So those are the major changes that have occurred. On Pfizer has required countries to do some additional work on working with them on the deliveries and on some of the indemnification and liability issues, and that has taken more time. And so that's one of the reasons that there has been a delay in rolling out that vaccine as compared to the aspirations we had, but it's underway, and we'll see some more announcements coming in the next few days of other countries receiving doses. Over.
Thank you, Seth. And I invite any other panelists if they have anything to add to this one. It's the allocation, of course, was published today, so it's very fresh. Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay, well, let's move on. So I think if it's okay with the panelists, we'll take one more round of questions. I would love to. Simon Ateba is next. Then we have two from FA. So if that's okay with FA, we'll just take the first one, Antonio. And then after that, we will go to Jasper Ward. So Simon, over to you first. Simon from Today News, I believe, if I can read correctly.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. This is Simon Ateba for Today News Africa in Washington, D.C. Yesterday was the first day of vaccination in Africa, and as you noted earlier, shots were administered in Ghana and in Ivory Coast. I would like to know how it all went. Are some people experiencing side effects, or is everything going on smoothly? And more broadly, there are only 39 days left in the Covax target to deliver vaccine to all countries within the first 100 days of this year. Will that target be met in Africa, where only 5 countries have so far received the vaccine doses? Thank you.
Thanks so much. A couple of good questions there. Hopefully the Minister is still with us for the first one. He can give us some first-hand experience. Okay, so who will we go to next? Antonio, please.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for taking my question. I am looking at the list. I'm especially interested on the figures in Latin America. I wonder why Venezuela and Cuba are still not in the list. Most of the other countries in the region are here, but not them. And also, I would like to know why Mexico has a relatively small number of doses, 5 million, given that they have a very large population and they are one of the most affected countries by COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio. Jasper Ward, please.
Hi there. Well, I haven't been able to receive the list, if you can maybe point me to that. And my question is, when can we expect to see deployment to Caribbean countries?
Great, okay, fantastic. I'd like to, if we can, if the Minister is still with us, Minister Manu, if you're there, perhaps you could share some first-hand experiences on the beginning of the vaccination campaign yesterday. And after that, maybe...
Thank you very much. The President had his jab with the wife, the Vice President did, our service chiefs, the military, police commissioners, the religious leaders, quite a number of them. After yesterday, there seemed to be some excitement. People are now calling and requesting whether they get into their turn and all that. I took one in the largest hospital in the country this morning. We set up another place in the regional hospital. Our Council of State members, dignitaries, everybody is now coming out for the vaccines. And it looks like hesitancy can be managed with this initial demonstration of leadership. No side effects so far. I don't think we're going to have any. So we are very grateful.
Thank you so much. And the other question was around the 100 days and the 100 days campaign of mentioned by Dr. Tedros. Dr. Tedros, are you there? Can you talk to that, please?
Thank you, Oli. Bruce will take on that question. Thank you so much. Can you change the?
Yeah, thank you very much. On the question of the 100-day campaign, indeed, Simon, it is completely possible to ensure that all countries that have not yet started could begin vaccinating in March. The challenge really remains whether or not now the manufacturers can keep up with the tremendous amount of orders that Covax is putting through them. But as importantly, that Covax can access the vaccines and the doses that have been assured to it to make sure that it can serve all of those countries. If we look just at the numbers over the next couple of weeks, or this week and next, nearly 30 countries in sub-Saharan Africa will be receiving doses. So the rollout will now start to move much more quickly. And if I remember correctly from the numbers, that there's going to be 15 countries in the first 10 days of rollout will be on the African continent. So it's possible, but everybody has to work together in support of Covax and in support of the goal to try and ensure that the doses are equitably distributed at this crucial time.
Thank you, Bruce. Other questions regarding Venezuela and Cuba. There are some countries, of course, on the planet allocation list that are in different circumstances. Seth, I'm going to ask you to comment on those two. Of course, Mexico as well, if we have anything. And again, I invite Gian from UNICEF Supply Division to perhaps talk a little bit about supply chain issues coming up, perhaps in relation to the Caribbean, to Jasper's question.
So just keep in mind that it is very early days. We're in the first week of doing rollouts now. So the answer is we'll see more doses going. My remembrance is that Cuba did not choose to be part of the facility, which is why there are no doses there. Venezuela has doses, but the exact date of those are not yet clear. And in terms of Mexico's numbers, remember, this is the first allocations of vaccines. There will be more allocations as we get new vaccines in, but each self-financing participant has made a choice on what amount of doses they want to get. And so some countries have chosen the maximum amount, and some countries have chosen lesser amounts based upon, their existing deals and ability to access. So let me turn it over to UNICEF in terms of delivery timelines. Over.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks, Ollie. So as many of you know, we're working on a joint tender with the Pan American Health Organization, and as the lead procurer and procurement coordinator, we're supporting Pan American Health Organization with the finalization of their supply agreements. And so we expect doses to be rolling out in short order for the region over there, in line with the allocations, as Seth mentioned shortly. Over.
Thanks so much, Jan. And we are come to time, unfortunately. We're 15 minutes over what we said we'd be, but I think that's necessarily so because there's a lot of information to get across and lots of questions to take. Those of you that haven't been able to answer questions, please do. We will capture any in the chat. If you didn't put them in the chat, send us an email. You have our details. I'd like to thank all our panelists. The message coming from us today is, yes, this is a historic moment. It's a very notable achievement, but it's the beginning of a long journey. It's not the end by any means. And we will keep you updated every step of the way to the best of our ability. So thanks to those of you who spoke today. Thank you to all of you that joined us. This session is now over.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.